Truck.
Get your stuff. All right, let's do it.
All right, let's call to order the RTC meeting for Friday, August 16th with a roll call.
Sandra Rosenberg.
Here.
Devin Reese.
Here.
Alexis Hill.
Here.
Ed Lawson.
Here?
Bill Thomas.
Here.
Mari Luz Garcia.
Here.
Hillary Shavy.
Here.
Adam Spear.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Hill, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let's move on to public comment. Olivia Taninger.
Good morning. My name is Olivia Taninger. I'm the executive director of the Sierra Club's Toyabe chapter. The Toyabe chapter believes that we all have a right to a livable planet, and we work on supporting renewable energy expansion, public transit access, and conserving our land, water, and wildlife in our region. We represent 40,000 members and supporters, and as such, we're the largest grassroots environmental group in the state. I wanted to come here today to talk about the potential legislation for Nevada's 2025 legislative session. We're working with legislators to bring a bill on transit to trails. This bill would create a commission that would work to identify high-priority trailheads and secure federal funding for transit expansion. As proposed, the commission, the Transit to Trails Commission, would have members from Washoe RTC and Southern Nevada's RTC, as well as relevant land management agencies, community representatives, and law enforcement. The Sierra Club slogan is Explore, Enjoy, and Protect the Planet. As a Reno resident, I have met children and community members who have never been to Lake Tahoe because of transportation limitations. Similarly, there are residents in Southern Nevada who have never been up to Mount Charleston or out to Red Rock. We believe everyone has a right to explore and enjoy Nevada's beautiful public lands, and hope this will be the first step in eliminating barriers for recreating outside for our communities across the state. If you have any questions or would like to speak to me about this, I'm super open to that. Please feel free to contact me. I just wanted to notify you all because there's probably going to be a discussion on it in Interim Natural Resources next week. So feel free to reach out, and I look forward to talking to you about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wishing to speak? All right, we'll bring it back. Number 3, approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion.
So moved, Mr.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent items. Anyone wishing to pull a consent item? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. What are we up to? 5, public hearing. All right. Public hearing, conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution approving the purchase and sale of agreement and the sale property of APN 004-082-18, APN 004-06129, APN number 004-1061 rather, 2020, and APN 004-061-26, APN 004-061-22, and APN 035-033-02 for the city of Reno. Do we have a staff presentation on this? I don't see any staff rushing to the dais here.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm not sure that we need a staff presentation, only in as much as I believe we've seen it here at this body before.
Okay.
And for my part at the City of Reno, and I'll speak on behalf of myself and Mayor Shavy, this is a fantastic intergovernmental cooperative agreement that is the culmination of 3 different agencies working very hard to find creative ways in which the RTC, TUMWA, and the City of Reno could impact positively our housing and affordable housing stock in the region. So it really is a fantastic undertaking in that regard, and certainly am supportive of it. There's lots of folks who have taken a role in it, and I think this body's willingness to step out into a space that it might not normally otherwise participate in is really, I think, important to seeing our various and collective boards work together towards solutions for affordable housing.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to commend the city of Reno for your work in this space, and thank you so much for seeing how we can get more workforce housing online and working with the Building and Trades Union to do so. So it's an exciting project. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. So I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, public hearing.
Oh, you got to open the public hearing. Sorry.
Public hearing, anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item? All right, we'll bring it back to the dais. Now you can make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. My further discussion is, we've been working on this for several years now. I'm glad to see it come to fruition. I'm 150% in favor of this, and what the city of Reno's done. I'm very proud of you guys for making this happen. So with that, let's vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.1, receive a presentation from staff regarding the draft regional freight plan.
Good morning, members of the board. Graham Dollarhide, Planning Manager for the record. Today I'll be presenting on the draft regional freight plan. Freight planning is a relatively new concept for the RTC, although staff works closely with NDOT in their statewide efforts, including their state freight plan. So this plan will build on some of those efforts, but more so at a regional level. So I'll provide a quick overview of the document before getting into the proposed recommendations and next steps. The planning process was conducted with support from Parametrics and Cambridge Systematics as the sub-consultant. The process began in the second half of 2023 and began with existing conditions and other analyses that were then used to spark conversations with the stakeholder working group and individual partner agencies. This part of the process helped establish the vision and goals that set the stage for the rest of the plan. Engagement was key and included interactions with our stakeholders, which included TMRPA, City of Reno, City of Sparks, Washoe County, Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, NDOT, GOED, EDON, the Chamber, Nevada Trucking Association, and others. Additionally, more in-depth one-on-one conversations were held with stakeholders and other agencies, including, again, EDON, NDOT, Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, Story County, City of Fernley, Manufacturer Nevada, Campo, City of Reno, City of Sparks, and others. Finally, an online survey was used to gather general thoughts on freight from the public. So with the help of the stakeholder working group, a vision statement for regional freight was established, which is to foster a thriving and a diverse economy in northern Nevada through safe and efficient freight transportation infrastructure. Building off this vision, the group also helped shape a series of goals, which were then used to align recommended improvements to transportation infrastructure and services. As I mentioned, the stakeholder group helped establish the goals, which can be generally stated as improving safety, multimodal integration, efficiency of freight movement and truck parking, while also providing for sustainability and equity in freight movement. I'll cover these goals here momentarily. So as I mentioned, a review of existing conditions and several analyses went into informing the plan and its recommendations. Data related to commodity flows, gaps in truck parking, regional land use, and existing plans, facilities, and infrastructure were all important considerations. Perhaps more importantly, data on truck safety, travel time reliability, pavement conditions, and utilization were assessed to determine priority freight corridors. These corridors factored into the recommendations to address freight mobility needs. The graphic shown here depicts one of the analyses used to determine the priority freight corridors. It shows truck utilization on various corridors throughout the region. As can be expected, I-80, I-580, 395, and the Sparks industrial area have the heaviest utilization, but there are also emerging areas in the North Valleys and Spanish Springs. If this map were to be zoomed out a little further, it would show the Tri-Center as being heavily utilized as well. So getting into the goals and how they informed the proposed recommendations, the focus on improving safety would obviously be to reduce truck-involved crashes on freeways and regional roads, but efforts made to improve truck safety will typically also improve safety for all travelers. To improve safety, the plan relies heavily on those priority freight corridors I just mentioned. I-80 is a top priority as it has the highest concentration of truck-involved crashes in the region, with the area around the East McCarran interchange being the single highest concentration. Regarding multimodal integration, about a quarter of freight activity in northern Nevada uses multiple modes, meaning that planning for transfers between trucking, rail, and aviation is critical. We heard also from our working group that maintaining rail spur access was critical to multimodal integration and the overall success of freight movement. We also heard that providing a better link between air and surface modes can greatly enhance the flow of freight and passengers. The Reno-Tahoe Airport Authority needs to expand freight capacity, and planning for this potential influx in air freight will be essential to the overall success of freight. Improving efficiency of freight movement means reducing travel delays and improving travel time reliability. This can be accomplished through strategies such as traffic signal optimization, targeted capacity improvements, improved connections to freeways, and more and enhanced truck routes. The priority freight corridors I discussed previously were also used to a larger extent in supporting projects that meet this goal. Many of RTC's planned projects aimed at improving the transportation network as a whole, such as signal timing upgrades and a regional traffic operations center, will also to improve the safety and efficiency of freight. So many of the plan's recommendations are based on RTC projects already planned or programmed. Incorporating equity and sustainability in freight movement should consider improvements in the first and last mile deliveries, but maybe more importantly, improvements to workforce access. This can be done through improvements to the transit system as well as multimodal facilities like sidewalks and bike lanes. Additionally, freight may have impacts on neighborhoods and the environment that are different from other types of transportation. So potential impacts from noise, air quality, and safety are of particular concern in traditionally underserved areas. So in general, the goals surrounding equity and sustainability can be accomplished through minimizing impacts to underserved areas and supporting a resilient system to reduce emissions and improve air quality. Finally, there are several strategies that could help expand truck parking or improve the parking situation, which is compounded when winter weather closes passes on I-80 or other routes, such as the truck parking availability system, which notifies truck drivers of where parking is available. There can also be efficiencies through shared parking areas or requirements for industrial parks and facilities to include truck parking in their site development. And allowing curbside truck parking is usually most important for the owner-operators who typically do not have another option for overnight parking. However, it will be important to consider potential conflicts with bicycle facilities when including on-street parking options. So as we wrap up this process, staff will incorporate comments from on the draft plan from RTC advisory committees and the board. Staff has already been working on doing this based on some of the comments received to date, and will plan to have everything finalized in the coming days in anticipation of a formal adoption in September. Beyond adoption, staff will be looking to implement recommendations for those projects I mentioned that are already programmed. Additionally, potential establishment of a freight advisory committee would be used to further improve coordination on freight planning and other initiatives. So with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
questions from the commission? Adam, we just need a motion to accept the report.
Mr. Chair, these 3 items are not action items, but they were labeled as for possible action as a result of an oversight, so no action is required on any of these 3 items.
All right. Do you have a question?
All right, thank you for
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Thank you for incorporating the Verdi study that we recently completed at RTC as part of this. I know that my constituents have major concerns with local roads being used for parking when there are weather conditions, and I think we still don't quite know what to do in that arena and are looking for options and exploring options, but I appreciate that that was incorporated as part of that. And I just really feel for folks who live and work in the North Valleys. So I know that this board is committed from our last strategic planning process to see what we can do to get more public transit up there, invest more in that community, because just speaking to even teachers who are up there and their kids who haven't even been to Idlewild Park because it's too far away and the traffic is too crazy. So trying to find some options to support that community, I think, are really important for us to consider. But thank you for going outside the box in this new study and seeing how the board can support.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Thanks, Graham. Move on to 6.2, receive a presentation from staff regarding the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan.
Good morning, board members. My name is Xuan Wang, planning manager with RTC. Today I'm going to give a presentation on the RTP update. So again, the RTP is a long-range transportation plan. To reiterate, this is the timeline of the project. We started in fall of 2023 and aiming for approval in spring of next year. So we have done existing conditions analysis and had a board retreat in April. We also did public and the agency engagement, which I will be talking about in this presentation later. And right now we are working on future needs analysis, and the draft plan will be ready for review in winter of 2024. The stakeholder and community engagement is early and broad-reaching. The purpose is to gain input on the current and future state of the transportation system and to understand the concerns and the preference. And the input we get from this process will be informing decision makings and also help develop RTP goals. We also had an online interactive map component on the public survey, and this helps us to understand the community needs at specific geographic areas. So through the process, we had 473 participants for the online survey and received over 1,700 comments. We gave presentations, 3 presentations at the regional government partners boards, and also our agency working group, which is the group that help shape the RTP, include 21 partner agencies and organizations. So we advertised the outreach through different efforts, from social media posts to different events like the CAB meetings, and also the senior event center activities. Also give TV news station stories and the road ahead segments. We summarized the top themes from the results. The first one, we have 4 major themes. The first one is regional planning and coordination. The main themes are to improve regional planning and coordination to address the impact of growth and development, and also concerns on the stream of new development on existing infrastructure and public service. For public transit options, people would like to see expanded and improved transit options, and also improvement on the transportation connections at the airport area. People want to see expanded ride share options, carpool lanes, and park and ride facilities. For pedestrian and bike safety and traffic, the top areas are Sun Valley and the Truckee River corridor. People want to see protected bike lanes, sidewalks, and crosswalks. For environmental sustainability, the preference is reducing vehicle miles traveled, improving residents' health, and also transportation's resiliency during severe weather, such as storm and snow. So, like I mentioned, there's a interactive map type of survey we did with our online survey, and we asked people to place markers on a map to let us know where the areas of concerns and also their comments. And you can see on the right, that's the results of that survey, highlighting some of the top areas. And on the left, we have the map from our April board retreat. These are the board areas of focus. We can see there are a lot of overlap, especially in downtown Reno, Sparks, Sun Valley, Verdi, and Tri-Center. So the comments we got from this survey, there are a lot of details. We'll use it for our future projects to help us with this decision making. And this slide shows the goals development. So we start with our current RTP goals and the national goals and planning factors, and combined with the information we got from the stakeholder input and public input to develop the 2050 RTP update goals. So we identified 9 RTP goals. From safety to infrastructure condition, system reliability and resiliency, accessibility and mobility, congestion reduction, freight movement and economic vitality, equity and environmental sustainability, reduce project delivery delays, and land use and economic development. From these 9 goals, we developed the objectives. So these are specific and more actionable, and they reflect how success is defined for each goal. And from the objectives, we have evaluation factors. These are measures for these objectives, and we also use these measures to build the prioritization framework and tool to evaluate the RTP projects. So right now we're working on developing a draft project listing. So we started from the current 2050 RTP project listing, minus the ones that have been already completed, and added the recommendations from the Verdi study, the McCarran study, and the Montrose study recommendations. And we also, in our July agency working group meeting, we asked the staff from our partner agencies and jurisdictions to go back and communicate within their organization and their elected representatives to recommend additional projects. If they have some projects they want to add to this list, they will provide us with that recommendation by Friday of next week. So the next steps are we will receive the new recommendations and develop the project listing, and also develop a prioritization framework and tool to be reviewed by our agency working group. At the same time, we're developing the travel demand model, which is an important analysis tool to analyze future transportation. Staff are also working on writing the RTP chapters, and we'll provide the next board update in October. So that's my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and great work. I've been seeing you out and about in the community, getting that input. I'm just curious on the airport comments. What specifically, and where are people specifically coming from that are saying that there are airport issues, and what are their specific comments, that it's too expensive for Lyft or Uber, or?
Yeah, people mostly commented on the connection from people getting off the airplane and going to other places in town. Like the
Visitors?
Yeah, visitors.
Okay.
And the residents after they arrived at the airport, how they can take a transit and walk,
Okay.
Walkability, and where to find signs and to direct them to the right directions. A lot of detailed comments just on getting transportation connection from the airport to the other places in town.
Absolutely. And then what do you do with those comments? Is, compile them and provide some recommendations for the board on whether we want to invest in that type of connectivity as well?
Yeah, so if it's related to sidewalk connectivity, we'll definitely look into it. And if it's the airport is area there right away, we also have the airport in our agency working group. So we let them know these are the comments we received regarding the airport. We provided input, and they can implement to improve situations for the passengers.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Mr. Reese?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Excellent work, as always. I suppose mine is a very generic question, and it really speaks to how community members who don't really have an awareness of how government works or what the RTP is, that generally what happens when we're out in the community, and I'll just speak for myself, but I think it's probably similar for all of us, is that a well-meaning and concerned citizen comes and says, here is my oh so important problem with transportation infrastructure. It might be related to their specific neighborhood, a road that they traverse every day where they're seeing some impacts to congestion. And so it's hard sometimes to translate government speak into what really happens for people as they interact with the built environment. And so I wanted maybe to say that what would be helpful to me is for me to see maybe a running list of the projects that we identify in the RTP. And then I know it's a longer range planning document. Ours will extend to 2025. But then there's the next planning document that's more like a 20 and 30-year examination, so that we can share with people. Sometimes the frustration can be really alleviated very quickly if people know that help is on the way, right? And I think about a lot of us have put a lot of effort on this body into the North Valleys because there seems to be a lot of bottlenecks that we have created through the built environment that are now being worked through, and RTC and NDOT and in the city of Reno have really tried very hard in the North Valleys. We have some work to do. So I suppose my question for you is, how might we take what you have here, and I love the presentation materials, but also break it down into, like, here are the projects that we think are coming in the next year, here's the ones that we think are coming in the next 2 years, here's the ones that are coming in the next 3 years. So we have just a landing place for people to go and point them to say, we hear you, we see the problems you're having, we're working on it. Is there something like that would be easily accessible?
Yeah, this is exactly what we're going to do for the next steps. Once we have the project listing, we will do prioritization, and also combined with our analysis on the funding availability, the timing, and the community input, and to identify how the timing of each project will look like. And also we have a lot of projects that are already programmed and in different stages of the project, from environmental design all the way to construction. So in the end, this RTP will have a project listing with timing. And we also have the RTIP, the regional transportation improvement program, which we match the projects with the funding, and that information is available online. And so we can provide the information that way.
Well, and I will say that the RTC's comms team is very good about sharing the story, right, in various ways, social media, press conferences, groundbreakings, all of the things. I would just encourage us to lean into that. I think the staff is doing a wonderful job of communicating the story, but, you know, the public doesn't really understand the difference between the RTP, the RTIP. Even for us on this body, it takes quite a while to get up to speed on that and to understand how it plays out. The other thing I will say is that it is also true that the members on this body are all very gracious and collegial members of this community, so we don't have a lot of siloing and isolation among our various jurisdictional boundaries. I am always happy when, you know, Sparks is getting a new road or the county is working on a thing. I'm not sure that's always the case in government agencies. Sometimes people get very territorial and they want their thing. In this process, what I have learned is that having the RTIP and the RTP allows us not to do that to one another either, right? To like say, oh, I'm going to jump the line because my project is oh so very important to me or my specific constituency group. Here we are tasked with being a regional body and really having a cause and concern for every aspect of the community. So again, these two documents allow us to share that with the community in a way I think that is meaningful to them, but also among our colleagues here at this dais. Because like I said, we all work incredibly well together. I consider all of these folks friends. And so it helps us to prioritize and say, well, I know that you have a thing that you're very passionate about. Let me see where it fits into the broader scheme of things. And then we aren't like trying to jump one another, right? So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Sheevy.
I think she had her.
Oh,
Okay.
You go ahead. And
Thank
then
you.
I'll-
My first time here. Thank you for having me. Sandra Rosenberg, Deputy Director at NDOT. I want to follow up on your comments, Mr. Reese, just to emphasize the importance of this document and the really excellent and thorough process you're going through and including the state. I think one of the things that's lost in that government requirements, because this is a federally required document, is that everything transportation related needs to go into this plan, including NDOT projects. And so they're working very closely with us, but we can't deliver anything that's not in this plan. And, you know, the RTIP is essentially the first 4 years. So it's not just this 20, 30-year plan. It is from year one through the end of that. So I just want to make sure everyone knows the importance of this document. And this is a document we reference. We utilize this for our prioritization and vice versa. And we really appreciate the involvement again. And all our MPOs work with us, but I think that you have gone above and beyond to make sure NDOT is participating every step of the way as you develop this. So excellent work, Schwen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Great job. Excellent. I want to go back to the airport for a minute. I am the liaison over there. Can I ask you, do you know who represents the airport on this project?
Lisa Butterfield?
Lisa who?
Butterfield.
Okay. The one thing that I think would be really helpful, because I think a lot of times the board only gets the information that maybe is brought to them. I think some of your comments are very, very important. It's important for them to hear this. And I think because a lot of times, quite honestly, the airport lives in a silo. And we need to break them out of that silo. So I would love if we could, Mr. Thomas, get maybe a presentation over at the airport board so that they understand how critical it is to have these comments. I have Mr. Colpin here in the room today. So if we could coordinate, and I'm happy to make that introduction email, but I would just highly recommend it because I think that they might not understand the importance to your comments, that things need to be in here or else too bad, so sad, right? But I see them typically also really focus on air transportation, and you know, that's frustrating because basically, you know, people are going somewhere once they get here. And then it's that next touch point of experience. So they need to also be partners in what that transition looks like and where people go from there, from Lake Tahoe to other parts of, you know, the city. And I do think, you know, they're having some challenges there because they're focusing so much on air service. So I do think it would be helpful. I really would love to have their feedback and comments. And if we can push them a little bit forward, and I'll keep doing it, but to understand. And we also all have representatives that sit on there. So if you could mention it to them, make them aware. You're all, I do. I do too, but I think they do get focused on air service. But I want to say great job. Where are you?
Art hears it.
Oh, Art. Oh, I don't see you. See, they even have me on a pillow over here. Art, okay, you have your homework.
I'm writing notes.
Okay, thanks, my friend. Well, I know you will get it done, so I'm glad you're here. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Madam Mayor, or Mr. Mayor, may I address Madam Mayor?
No, yes, go please.
I wonder too, because I am interested in furthering the conversation because obviously the main airport has a role to play and the redevelopment around it has an interesting role to play in the road connectivity. But up north, when we talk about the Reno Stead Airport, and as we have made some critical investments into roadway infrastructure that is in and around or near the Reno Stead Airport, I wonder if we might be really thinking about finding an opportunity for this board to have a little bit more integration, maybe find out if there's a chance for further things here. Because as they develop aspects of the airport in the north with more warehousing, manufacturing, it implicates Mr. Dollarhide's earlier presentation. It certainly impacts transportation routes along Military Road and all those things where we are making improvements. So I would like to maybe hear and see if someone might put together a greater understanding from our perspective how we might be more closely aligned with them, or at least understand their intentions, how they might impact us. So I'm sort of positing that there's a larger agenda item maybe.
Yeah. And just to touch on that, just so you know, and I think it would be good here, Bill, is I have reached out to the airport because they used to come to council and give us all updates, and I think all of us should request that because now we're out of COVID, they're moving fast, and it's an exciting project, but I think we don't know what's transpiring next or how we're all working together on that. So I have asked for an update, but maybe we could also do that in the mutual meeting that we're gonna all participate in, if you want to do it that way, but it's probably a great time because it's exciting. They're getting stuff done.
Thanks for these comments. We'll follow up with, I'll start with the executive director of the airport and figure out a way to deal with these issues and in a way that's informative to both boards and improve the interaction.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Let's move on to 6.3 then. Receive a presentation from staff regarding the draft active transportation plan.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Marquise Williams, transportation planner for the record. This is an informational presentation on the Walk and Roll Truckee Meadows. That's our RTC active transportation plan. This is for informational purposes now, and then it'll be on the agenda for approval next month. It's been over a year and a half now in the making. We started in November of 2022, so big thanks to Alta, our consultant, for sticking with us. So if it looks familiar, it's because we presented this at the March board retreat, and it's really focused on moving people outside of a vehicle and getting that mode share. We heard from the board and the community that there's a strong desire for better active transportation infrastructure. So this plan is strongly focused on implementation and then utilization of our improved network. So like I said, we heard from all corners that we could be doing better in terms of active transportation. We did do 2 surveys. One was community-wide, and the other was targeted at students in Washoe County School District and parents. We got a combined 1,200 responses there, which is really good for these kinds of efforts. And you can see we did a comment map on the right there. We also did 3 public meetings. So one was in person at the Washoe County Senior Center, and then we had 1 virtual for students and 1 virtual for the community as a whole. We coordinated with local jurisdictions, city staff, and county staff through our agency working group, and then, of course, we did the board retreat presentation. So while we were collecting this data, or while we were doing the outreach, we also collected a ton of data and analyzed that data. So going down the list here, demographics. We wanted to make sure we're investing in low-resource communities. So neighborhoods that traditionally haven't got as much investment, we want to make sure that we acknowledge them and prioritize them. 2 and 3, current facilities and network comfort. So where are our existing bike lanes and sidewalks? And then from there, how comfortable and safe are they? So we have a bike level of traffic stress index, and we also have a pedestrian experience index. And both of those really focus on how safe and comfortable is our network. So network safety and crash history. We use NDOT data, NDOT crash data, to find pedestrian and bike involved crashes. And then we incorporate those into our high injury network, which shows above average corridors for safety issues. And then lastly is mode shift potential. So this is the land use part. So the theory here is a high concentration of residential activity that's close to destinations like schools, parks, and grocery stores should yield more active transportation trips. So when we combine and consolidate all of this data and all of these findings, we get a map of hotspots. And so these are the areas where we have both the highest need for improvements and the highest potential for utilization. This data-driven approach removes bias and ensures that we're making value-oriented investments where the return on investment can be measured in that utilization. This is not, however, a project list. Instead, we're looking to take a neighborhood approach. So this might be a bit of a recap, but the neighborhood planning process came up because non-vehicular trips are often made at the neighborhood level rather than the regional context. So the example I have is that someone living in Damani Ranch is more likely to regularly walk to the grocery store or the local park rather than commuting all the way to downtown Reno. Additionally, these neighborhoods function differently, so different tools are necessary to get people out of their cars. So the example is Spanish Springs, a suburban neighborhood, requires different solutions and treatments than a denser Victorian square. This neighborhood approach also allows us to do targeted outreach, and it allows residents and community members to feel a sense of ownership and the involvement in the local planning process. And it allows us to identify projects that might be harder to find at a regional level. They tend to boil to the top better when you do a neighborhood approach. So without further ado, here are the neighborhoods. So we've identified here 12 neighborhood areas, and it's important to understand these are arbitrary, non-jurisdictional boundaries specifically for project planning and implementation. And they're meant to be thick borders. So the idea is that planning efforts won't be confined to hard and fast boundaries. You won't have improvements cut off at a certain street and have really different levels of treatment. So the plan is to develop a neighborhood plan for all 12 networks within 4 to 5 years. So these plans will identify project prioritization and implementation strategies, as well as funding opportunities and any available quick build opportunities to get things on the ground, implemented, and hopefully utilized. We'll, as always, work closely with our active transportation technical working group. So that's the city staff and stakeholders to ensure that we consider and incorporate county goals. So now that we have the neighborhoods identified, we can refer back to that GAPS map that considers those 5 factors. Again, the demographics, current facilities, network comfort, safety, and the active trip potential. So this data-driven scoring metric allows us to determine which neighborhoods have the greatest opportunity and potential for increased bike and pedestrian trips. So here on this table, you can see Central Reno, Central Sparks, and Sun Valley are the top 3 highest scoring neighborhoods using this metric. And staff has budgeted time and funding for 2 neighborhood plans this year. And with that in mind, Central Reno and Central Sparks would get the 2 initial plans, with Sun Valley and down the list proceeding in the years following, again with the goal of hitting all of these 12 neighborhoods within 4 to 5 years. So the neighborhood network plans themselves are funded using planning dollars, and we will be doing these 12 plans in instead of a larger region-wide active transportation update. And then we want to move quickly, like I said, into implementation. So once the plan is complete, staff will work to identify the best implementation strategies, whether it's through existing programs like the pavement preservation program, where if we stripe a road differently, maybe that can have a big impact on active transportation. Additionally, we can look into the opportunity for a dedicated active transportation program funding source, and we'll continue to look at discretionary grant funds and those opportunities as they arise. So we'll continue with the regional coordination as we implement these plans. We want to have constant contact with staff at the jurisdictions, as well as presentations when appropriate to this board. And then, yeah, each neighborhood plan will also have a local neighborhood coalition. So we want to incorporate feedback from first responders, teachers, council members, business owners, residents, and people who are uniquely familiar with the neighborhood, more so than we might be here as staff. So to conclude, this active transportation plan establishes this neighborhood network planning process, as well as a program for implementing. We'll continue working to create a network of safe facilities for active transportation, provide ongoing education and engagement opportunities, and streamline processes to ensure efficient design and implementation, getting these things done and out on the road. So like I said at the beginning, we'll be back for approval next month, and that will also bring a contract for consultant help with the first 2 neighborhood plans. So with that, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just look to my right.
I know, it's habit. Look over here. I'm sorry, I'm a little froggy today. Marquise, great job. And I am such a fan of this neighborhood planning approach. I think it's phenomenal. And I was just leaning over and talking to Bill about that this was generated from our staff, which I think is a really cool idea that you were able to bring forward to the body. So I really appreciate that innovation. Dale's not here today, but I wanted to say thank you to him. He, of course, all 4 of the top 4 are located in areas that I represent on the county commission in District 3, and so they're all really, really important to me. And I asked Dale for the methodology and the breakdown on how the scoring took place, because when you have something like so close between Central Sparks and Sun Valley, I kind of wanted to know what differentiated the 2. And just some of the members on this body recognize it's an ongoing concern for my constituents in Sun Valley, and I trust staff in the way that these are prioritized. So let me just start off by saying that. But I did want to take a moment today to bring forth some of the concerns. My constituents, obviously, whenever there's talk about a new development, they're very, very concerned about that new development landing on existing infrastructure. And we were talking about parcels that were just approved today that is going to greatly impact that Scottsdale and Clearacre intersection. And going north from there, there's a tremendous bottleneck that happens. I visualize Sun Valley as, you know, it's like an island, but it's surrounded by mountains. And, you know, if you were a ship, you only had 3 entrances. You've got the Clearacre, the O'Brien Pass, and the Highland Ranch. And literally, we are completely isolated. And to me, that carried weight for me because our constituents don't have access like some of the other neighborhoods. There's not surface streets to choose to go on. There's really no choice. You have to go in to the valley with these 3 entry points. And so my question was answered earlier today, just so my colleagues know. The Sun Valley Boulevard Corridor Phase 2 plan is about 60% done in the design phase. Is that right? And I obviously haven't seen how far south that goes, and my concern really was from that Scottsdale Clearacre intersection going all the way up to 7th Street, which we know is a complete disaster right now. And we've got a new development happening on First Ave. We've got a proposed development happening on Chocolate Ave. There's a lot of development happening in Sun Valley, and we're already feeling that chokehold right there at that Dandini Clearacre intersection. So I just wanted to get an idea if I should strongly advocate that Sun Valley be bumped up today, or if you think that the existing Sun Valley Boulevard corridor study will provide a better holistic enhancements.
Is it on? Amanda Caligari, RTC Engineering Manager for the record. So as far as the status of the Sun Valley Phase 2 design, we just wrapped up, or our consultant, NCE, just wrapped up a drainage report. So we're still in preliminary design. We aren't at 60% design. However, we are trying to move that project forward as fast as we possibly can by being proactive on identifying potential funding sources. So I don't want to steal Paul's thunder. He's going to go over that a little bit here, but we're going after federal funds, and we're also working with NDOT because it is their jurisdiction, their roadway jurisdiction, to understand how we can potentially partner in cost share to get that project out as soon as we possibly can. In addition to that, I guess with the ATP, it is going to have, although it won't identify specific projects in that plan, it will have typology guides that we can implement in our projects. So I know that the Sun Valley neighborhood plan isn't moving forward right now, but it will be moving forward concurrent to final design of the Sun Valley Boulevard project. So we'll be able to take typologies from this active transportation plan and work alongside planning to make sure those are being implemented in the final design of the Sun Valley Phase 2 project, which right now we're looking at fiscal year 2027 for construction. So very high level, but any more details, I'd be happy to meet with you and chat about it.
It was 60% done on the design or in the drainage portion of the study. Okay,
yep.
Gotcha. So we're still a ways out.
Yep, we're done with the drainage study now, though. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. It's just any relief in sight is very much needed. It's going to be a real challenge to advocate for this amazing project that we just approved today because of that concern out there. There's a proposed Dandini project that's happening in the city of Reno that hasn't gone over very well either, and we all know that we need housing, especially affordable housing, workforce housing. It's really hard to advocate for that when you can't really disagree with your constituents, when it's terrifying to walk and bike in these areas. And there's a section particularly right at the RTC bus stop. As you drop into the valley, it's a sheer drop off on both sides, and I see constituents, walking and riding against traffic because they're afraid to put their back to traffic, and we constantly have collisions and we're having fatalities out there. And so anything I can do to just kind of put that on the record and voice what's happening on a day-to-day, and I see it firsthand. So I appreciate you guys. I acknowledge the recommendation to kind of do it concurrently, and I'm supportive of that, but I just wanted to make sure that relief is coming soon. Thank you.
Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Commissioner Garcia's point, how much, is it a question of how much these studies cost or a question of staff time? Because I know that we have limited staff time, but I'm like, how much would it cost to do a third study if we could find the money? I don't know how much it costs. But also, is it a staff constraint issue that only, our staff can handle 2 at a time? I just want to support Commissioner Garcia and see what we can do to possibly move that forward a little bit more quickly.
A couple answers to that question, which is obviously very deep in terms of our responsiveness. Short answer is yes, we have some constraints. We're dealing with them by looking at, we have 2 positions right now open that we have people we're interviewing, so that'll help move it forward. But probably more importantly, and I would say this is the real reason there hasn't been a lot of progress in Sun Valley, is the keystone to progress in Sun Valley is drainage. Everything that's been discussed up to this point in the past gets bogged down in the fact there's major drainage issues that have to resolve that are very, very expensive. So as we as staff, to follow up on Commissioner Garcia's question, because you had asked me earlier, we sat down and talked about would there be an advantage to maybe moving Sun Valley ahead, and where we concluded is not really, because at the end of the day, if we do the plan earlier, it's not going to progress any improvements, because we still have to resolve how we're going to deal with drainage. So once we get over that hurdle, which we're now very close to having the answer to and getting the money, then we can move forward with the improvements, many of which are going to be quick fixes or smaller things that will really help that area feel safer, within the confines of the mountains like you're talking about. So the ATP, I would say, to describe it, is more kind of sub-regional. It's looking at areas, neighborhoods, which often, in this case, would be one, just Washoe County, but how do we get people to move around freely? Ideally, if we can be successful, some degree of that pressure and discomfort people are having who live up there can be addressed by getting people off the road. That's the end goal. It doesn't resolve the fact that the 3 ins and outs and the challenges there, but it's a bit of a solution to some of the problem they're experiencing every day. But short answer is we got to figure out the drainage. We got to get that fixed so we can actually have people out there experience real improvements. There's been a lot of conversations, a lot of studies, but it always hits the drainage. And I think we're this close to being able to answer the drainage.
Anyone else?
Again, Sandra Rosenberg, NDOT Deputy Director. I know my name tag doesn't say that, so I feel like I have to say it every time. Great work, Marquise. I want to call attention to, and I'm just skimming this, but there's a section on maintenance and operations. That is one of the biggest challenges for getting some active transportation infrastructure out into our community. It's difficult, just doing the studies, getting the design, getting money for these projects can be difficult, but if there's not an agreement on who's going to maintain and operate them, it gets even more challenging. So I'm really glad that you addressed that in the plan, at least at some level, in terms of certain equipment and things like that. That's one of the biggest challenges. So I just wanted to compliment you on that.
Thanks.
Reese?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Williams, can I ask about the neighborhood plans? So I make an assumption that when we go out and do those plans, it will reveal things that we need to have done, right? Is that a safe assumption? Okay, so if those improvements are on local roads, then will RTC fund the improvements, right? I mean, I don't think it benefits us to go out and do a bunch of planning and then say to each of the jurisdictions, here's this planning document that we have now offered or foisted upon you. I think it's got to come with a commitment that the things that are included in that plan would be things that were prioritized by us to do as active projects. Mr. Dollarhide.
Graham Dollarhide, Planning Manager for the record. So that's a great question. Part of the answer to that is that what we're doing in coordination with both the Active Transportation Plan, the Neighborhood Network Plans, and our Regional Transportation Plan update is that we're trying to make it more realistic for projects to happen at the neighborhood level through the neighborhood network plans in the overall regional context. So the regional roads that you referenced, we're trying to massage that language a little bit in our regional transportation plan update again, so that potentially neighborhood level projects can be implemented. And then there is still discussion too about how the funding will play out and who the implementing agency would be. So that's yet to be determined, but we are looking into potentially making funding available for local jurisdictions for implementing projects, and then also the ongoing operations and maintenance piece. So that's yet to be determined, but those are some of the things that we have considered. Sandra called that out as part of the plan. That was part of the consideration, but we also knew that as part of the active transportation plan, we didn't have those answers just yet. So definitely something on our radar, and we'll be looking to have those answers going forward.
Well, so for my part, that was an artful answer, I think, and a good answer, and understandably so, because there are some variables that are unknown. But I want you to hopefully hear what I'm going to say from the City of Reno's perspective, and I won't share from anyone else's perspective, that it is our expectation that when you start to talk about low volume, low speed roads, which are not currently considered regional, that if we start to bring the levels down to which we study them, and we study their impact on micromobility, or even the presentation you made earlier about freight corridors and how we deal with larger vehicles creating traffic issues on our lower impact facility roads, that we should not be immune to the belief that the RTC is going to have to play a role in their rehabilitations at times, their maintenance and upkeep. So I'm suggesting to you that we continue to be regionally focused, but if we're going to go out and do neighborhood plans, it cannot be to the exclusion of our ability to remedy the things which are created or identified in those regional plans. So for my part, and what we'll have to do at this body, is we'll have to make sure that our inter-cooperative and local agreements that we have, and our MOUs about what is the type of facilities that we approve, are all jiving in the same direction. Because I think, to Commissioner Garcia's earlier point, there are definitely roads and road networks in the Sun Valley area that would be in this area, that would be in the plan, that would be revealed as things we need to improve. But saying that they need to improve them without the ability to do so means that the plan is useless. So that's sort of my statement about it. And I want us to just keep focusing on that as we move forward regionally, to understand that that would be my expectation.
Absolutely, and there's still, the programs that we have in place to deal with issues at the more regionally focused level, those will remain in place, and those may get special consideration through our regional transportation plan update as well. That is another piece of the puzzle that we're working on moving around right now. And the other factor of consideration is, even though a project may be recommended or implemented as a result of neighborhood network plans, there will be a regional component to that, to say that it is still sort of regionally necessary as part of the network for that region or sub-region or neighborhood. So it's still got a regional focus to some degree, but it's more focused again. So.
And Mr. Chairman, to Commissioner Reese's point, I think that's what I was trying to bring up. I don't know what board retreat it was, but about how especially for the county, we need help knowing what grants are out there to improve on our own right away, to improve with these neighborhood plans, and from your team, because we do have a grant writing department. I think they could execute these things, but they don't live in the transportation world. So I know counties and cities, because of, thank goodness, this administration and Secretary Buttigieg can apply for these grants now, but we just need help to know how to do it and when to do it. Just any guidance from your incredible team would be helpful for us, because I know that's I think what Commissioner Reese is trying to say is we don't have all the capacity that RTC does.
Very good discussion. I'm glad we're having it early with this process because what's really different here is how we're approaching this. In the past, the conversation might be there's one bike facility on one road that RTC is expected to fund. This is changing the way we do business, and it's only going to be successful with your help, with the local jurisdictions, because at the end of the day, the idea is what's going to get people out of cars in these neighborhoods. Yeah. And that's going to mean probably all of us are going to have to look at it differently, including funding sources. We do have the luxury right now, and hopefully it'll last, to have funds that are specifically targeted to this type of activity. So the goal would be to use these plans as a jumping off point for going and using those funds that have to be used specifically for this. So again, I guess what I would just add is I'm going to need your help. We're going to need your help in changing the way we do business if this is going to be effective.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, just really quickly. Just sort of piggybacking on that. Bill, thank you so much. I'm really, really pleased to see this because I think we tend to overlook the neighborhoods, and it's really where life sort of starts and ends, and it's where children play, and you know, it's really the foundation of a city, and they tend to get overlooked. So I really want to praise you. I think it's going to be one of the most important documents that we look at. I haven't had a chance to really dig into it, but I think it's fantastic. I love what you're saying. And love to meet with you just more in depth to kind of pick your brain on this. But there were a couple things that I just had that I think were sort of interesting. Love to know more. This would take a long time, so I don't want to do it up here, but just to put it on your radar. And you mentioned something about a public bicycle experience matrix. Was it a matrix you called it? What did you call that?
So the PEI was the Pedestrian Experience Index.
Oh, yeah, the index.
Yeah, so that's just a metric of how comfortable a sidewalk is. So how, whether there's separation from the road, how wide the sidewalk is, and so how comfortable you feel.
So do you get the feedback, the data, and then you come out with basically a number? Like here we are on the index, like 1 to 10 or what?
Yeah, exactly. So for each segment of sidewalk region-wide. So it's a big data collection process.
Okay, love that.
Yeah.
Love to see it. Like I said, we can't do it today, but I definitely want to jump into that. And it sounds like you have one that includes bicycles.
It's a separate metric, but similar.
Yes, okay. I think that's fantastic because I think that's really crucial for all of us to dive into and see really where our weak points are. And then the other thing is, and I don't know, it's probably in there, and like I said, I haven't done enough work on this, but one of the things I would love to see, especially when we're thinking of our neighborhoods, and I would encourage this board to do something like this, but zero, we could even do a pilot, zero car school zones. Yeah. I mean, they are just getting so dangerous. And you're seeing that that also helps children promote, obviously, walking and biking, which is great for their health, but also it makes them realize that we don't need to be car dependent. But I would love for us to really identify at least one school to show what what the outcome can really look like. There's a lot of cities doing it, and I think I don't think anyone in Nevada has done it that I've seen yet, but we could be the first, and I think we should do it. And I'd love for you to think about especially those school zone areas, because love the parents, but they drive like crazy people. And I don't even have kids at school, but I drive by and think, whoa, that's an experience. And so if you would please put that on your radar.
Absolutely.
All right,
yeah, that's
thank
great.
you so much. All right.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, then, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's go to our reports. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Lawson. So I wanted to start today with a just scheduling update for the board because the question was asked at the last meeting. We are going to move the board meetings back to our original 9 o'clock start time. So starting with next month's meeting in September, we'll be meeting at 9 o'clock. I did want to, in making that announcement, also just to give you a forewarning in November, where 2 of our board members will, of course, be needing to canvass the vote on the date of our meeting.
Yay!
That,
Just
that
kidding.
meeting will
Just
be
kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
trying to canvass, yes.
I will be sending you lots of prayers and power.
So the November meeting will be the exception where it'll start at 8 o'clock. Wanted to give you that heads up in advance. While it may not be apparent to most people, RTC does have a role in public safety, and I wanted to mention 2 recent fires and what we did just for awareness and acknowledgement of some of our staff being very responsive. So on July 26th, the Reno Fire Department requested assistance from RTC and Keolis because of a structure fire. The fire happened in northeast Reno at McCarran and 7th and impacted routes 4 and 11. Keolis was quick to respond and had a bus in there in less than 15 minutes. 12 residents sheltered in the bus where the Red Cross and TIP interviewed them and offered services. Ultimately, none of the evacuees had to be transported, but our bus was used as a part of the response to that dire situation with that fire. And then the second fire, the Gold Ranch fire earlier this week, we also were available and made sure that the fire responders knew to provide evacuations if they were needed. As you all know, that was very much a touch-and-go fire, but RTC was available and did participate in the case that those evacuations were needed. So I wanted to specifically thank Rob Reeder, Jamie Barino, Keolis, and MTM for providing this quick response when members of our community were dealing with very serious events. And again, I'm very proud of the fact that our team and Keolis and MTM were ready within 15 minutes or less to respond to something that's not necessarily known of as part of our role, right, as transportation.
I was super pleased to see that, but you're always willing to step in. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Speaking of Rob, I wanted to congratulate him on his retirement. So I know, Rob, you're in the back. Stand up for the board if you would. Rob's worked with RTC for 19 years.
Wow.
After coming from a career in law enforcement, I can say working with Rob is, he's been a mainstay in security and safety in everything RTC does. He's one of those people that takes care of it behind the scenes. He's the one that gets the call in the middle of the night if there's a fire. And he's been an exceptional part of our team. Jamie's going to do a great job. Rob hung around to train him, but wanted to publicly thank Rob for all he's done for us. His last day will be September 6th, so we still get a little more time with him, but Rob's done so much for RTC that I didn't want it pass without recognizing him. Just to acknowledge an event we're very proud of this past week, I wanted to thank the board and the staff at RTC for attending and pulling together the Arlington Avenue Bridges event this past Tuesday. We are very honored to host Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Senator Cortez, Catherine Cortez Masto, and Senator Jackie Rosen. We feel this was a very successful event that showcased our extremely important upcoming project that the board previously designated as a federal priority. We plan on construction starting in May, and it's expected to take about a year to complete. I'd also like the board to help us in congratulating Dolores Pacheco, who is the MTM Employee of the Month for July of 2024. Dolores has been serving our community for 17 years with RTC Access and now FlexRide. She enjoys being her own boss on the road and picking up her regulars. She is fanatical about her manicured yard and works on that during her spare time. She enjoys spending time with her 6 grandchildren and 2 great grandchildren who are in the Reno-Sparks area, when they're in the Reno-Sparks area. Also, I'd like you to join me in congratulating Michael Humes as the Keolis Driver of the Month. Michael has worked as a bus operator for RIDE for more than 30 years. He's also on the Keola Safety Committee Review Board. His accomplishments in July consist of 95% on-time performance, 0 preventable accidents, and no customer complaints. Michael's a family man and enjoys spending quality time with his loved ones. So that concludes my presentation today.
Thank you, sir. Paul Nelson.
Good morning, Paul Nelson, Government Affairs Officer for RTC. So Congress is in recess until after Labor Day, so there won't be any movement on the appropriations bills until September. Of course, we have seen this week that our senators and our congressmen have been staying pretty busy, making the rounds up here in Northern Nevada. The House has passed 5 of 12 of their appropriations bills so far. The Senate Appropriations Committee has approved 11 of 12 funding bills. Lawmakers will have just a handful of days by the end of September to avoid a government shutdown after they return to Washington. The expectation is that they will come up with, both chambers will pass a continuing resolution that will get us through about mid-December. Of course, what happens this year in the election will determine what happens after that. The Reconnecting Communities Grant Program is open, and we are in the process of applying for this grant for the Sun Valley Boulevard project between Scottsdale Road and 7th Avenue. As we heard earlier today, this is a high priority for Commissioner Garcia, and we're really keeping our fingers crossed that this will be a successful grant application because we know how badly this project is needed out there. That application is due on September 30th. The FTA will host a meeting on bus design September 10th. Transit bus manufacturers will present their research and the plans to improve visibility for the bus operators through vehicle design. They'll look at things like mirror size and placement, A-pillar design, and opportunities to standardize safety features. The Bureau of Transportation Statistics updated its economic trends, and just a couple of things that kind of stood out. It shows about 6.6 million jobs are in the transportation and warehousing industries, and that's an increase from the previous month with about 4.2% of the U.S. employment. The unemployment rate in transportation is 6.8%, so that's still pretty high. It's more than 2 points higher than the rest of the unemployment rate, which is 4.5%. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Reese?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Nelson, I wanted to just thank you personally for the exceptional work that you put into making the Buttigieg-Arlington Bridges replacement project work. I know it's a difficult thing to coordinate with so many electeds, national folks, Secret Service, the folks running congressional offices, but I thought the event was flawless, and I know you have a team of folks that work with you to make it happen, so I'm really thanking you because you're the tip of the spear, but it was one of the better executed events that I've seen pulled off, and just an incredible opportunity for our region to showcase and highlight the infrastructure changes happening. And so I know you worked very hard on it. I know you never take credit for the work that you do, but you have my absolute thanks for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's more police there than attendees. I was kind of nervous. All right, NDOT report, Sandra.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Again, Sandra Rosenberg, NDOT Deputy Director. Thank you for having me today. The director was called away on an urgent matter this morning. Some follow-up on, I know there have been a number of conversations on working with the railroads and Union Pacific. We wanted to provide some follow-up. The director and others have been working very hard to resolve some of the issues that have come to our attention. We don't have jurisdiction over the railroad, but we do pride ourselves on partnerships and working through solutions together. So first, homeless concerns on the UP right-of-way. They have committed to a monthly cleanups in collaboration with the city, and we'll meet quarterly with the city. The Sparks Machine Shop building, apparently that building will need to be demolished, and UP does require that land for intermodal operations in Sparks. We thank you, RTC, for involving us in the upcoming rail study. Bill, I did send you a name today on who can help with that, so we appreciate being a partner on that. That's certainly critically important to all of us. And NDOT and UP are scheduling planning meetings to look at rail in Northern Nevada and projects of mutual benefit. I can also report that the director did meet with some of the UP leadership to continue to foster that relationship and work on issues together. And speaking of coordinated responses, we also are happy to assist when there's issues such as fires and other emergency response. We often do traffic control and those sorts of things. There was a fire in Sparks that we helped respond to on August 6th. Near I-80, and we were able to bring some water trucks to help put out the fire. Again, always happy to help be a partner in that anytime we can. And also, similarly with the Gold Ranch fire, Bill, I know you mentioned this, providing traffic control and any other assistance we can throughout the state, particularly in the rural areas as well. Our team is often first responders, first on the scene, communicating. I get regular communications from the team in terms of what's happening, when and who's in charge and how we're helping out. So I do, none of them are here today, but just a call out to our team who's always quick to respond and help out in any of these situations, and keep us and others informed. Not on this, because I was just getting updates this morning. There was a crash on Mount Rose this morning. The highway was closed for a portion of time. I believe they have one lane open, so just please be patient if you're heading that way after this, that there may be some backups for some time. And this was mentioned already, but we have a picture. So again, thank you, Paul and team. It was an excellent event. Thank you for including NDOT. Those who don't know, we are actually responsible for reporting conditions on all the public bridges across the state, whether we own them or not. So we really appreciate the partnership and working together to get this 100-year-old bridge replaced. We're excited. Again, well done on that event. Similarly, we and some of the members here attended the Tahoe Summit this year. Great event focused on transportation. It's usually a topic, but it's great when they focus really the whole event there. Secretary Buttigieg attended that as well, was the keynote speaker. So it was excellent. And the director and others got a short time to meet with him directly to talk about the importance of transportation in this region. So it's excellent to have him in Nevada for a few days. That was the end of Tracy's report. I did want to mention a couple other things since you talked about the RTP today and how the public can see project lists. Our STIP, Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, which is the 4-year plan of all of the federally funded and regionally significant projects across the state, is currently out for public comment. You can go to the NDOT website and just look up proposed transportation projects or go to estip.nevadadot.gov. I did want to note, though, for the record that because the way the process works in this government speak stuff, all projects in this region do have to go through the RTC. So if folks are seeing something that's a priority that's not on our STIP, it's probably because it hasn't gone through the RTC process yet. Our timing is not perfect. There's a bit of a stagger. So definitely submit comments on those things, and we'll continue to work with the RTC to see when that project might be coming into the statewide plan as well. And I just want to note, we look forward to continuing to cooperate and coordinate with you all, particularly on federal priorities and federal funding as those issues come up. And thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to commissioner announcements and updates. Yes.
No questions allowed.
There you go. Thank you for your update. Really, really appreciate it. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you did bring up bridges, do you own some of the bridges, though, in some capacity? Or would those bridges be a jurisdiction? Tell me.
It depends, like most things in our world. Typically, we own the bridges like on the freeways and things like that. And if the street is owned by a local entity, typically the bridge is. There are some exceptions. But again, we do report on them. We typically do the inspections for all public bridges across the entire state. So we have a role in them, but oftentimes on local roads, we don't own them. So it's definitely a partnership effort.
And then I'm curious, and we could talk about this at another time and do this through email, but curious, because I know like at the city of Reno, let's say we're doing a parking lot, it can't be gravel for, EPA reasons or whatever, because I notice a bridge that you do have, it does have gravel. So I was wondering, like, if you have requirements on some of those? I don't know.
Yeah, let's follow up on that
Okay.
offline. I'm not the expert in that area, but we'd be happy to have that conversation, and
All right.
we can.
I just didn't know if it was our responsibility or yours. I mean, it's sometimes we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, a lot of that. We definitely have requirements. I will say that, and they're probably the same as yours.
Okay.
Some of it depends on the use and the ownership and all those sorts of things. So definitely, let's follow up on that particular area, and we'll see what needs to be done.
All right, well, thank you for the report, and I also want to thank you for the railroad tracks with Union Pacific, because it's been very challenging. So if we can all continue to work together, we're going to be a lot happier, and safety is going to take priority, so thank you.
Okay. Commissioner announcements, questions? Yes.
Just a question to Bill on our legislative priorities. When that item, the Transit to Trails item, goes to the Interim Natural Resources Committee, since we're already doing that in some degree with our study of connecting Lake Tahoe down to the Washoe County in the Valley, can we comment in support of that program? How does that work? I just want to make sure that, I think it's a great idea, and I want to make sure we're at the table for that type of discussion.
I apologize. If you could repeat the question, I was.
Sure, absolutely. When the Transit to Trails item comes to the Interim Natural Resources Committee next week, I just wanted to see what the process was for our legislative priorities. Can we comment in support of that, since we're already doing that effort, trying to do a study of how we connect Lake Tahoe and the Reno area, Sparks area, Washoe County. And so we're already trying to kind of do that as a board, and I was wondering, is it appropriate, and how do we comment in support of what the Sierra Club is trying to do?
My answer, I guess, would be let us take a look at it. I don't know yet. I haven't talked to any of the staff. That was the first time I heard about it. So let's take a look at it and then get back to the board. And if it makes sense, we can put something on for the board to take a position on it, if that's the desire. It sounds like it is.
Yes.
Anyone else? Bill, I just want to bring back the RTC's role in the toll road BDR that Sparks is going to submit for the legislative session.
Another legislative priority.
Very, very wide open discussion, just figuring what we can do and what we can't do. Marluz, anything? Mr. Reese, you good? All right. Well, then we'll go to public comment. Madam Clerk, we got any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we received one public comment via email, which was emailed to the board members and will be made a part of the meeting minutes.
Thank you. Anyone in the public wishing to comment at this time? All right, with that, we're on to my favorite subject. We're adjourned.